morning. I think it is customary in GST, whenever we start, there has to be a technical glitch. No wonder. This jinx has been there along with GST. In any other topic we discuss on GST, I think it continues. Anyway, we are able to start, which is the good thing, because as it happened in GST since in the past 4 years, what we have seen, whether we are ready or not, we have boarded the train. So we are running along with the train, or either we are inside the train or hanging on to the train. So we have boarded the GST Express, and refund is the topic that I'll be discussing about in the next 90 minutes, including the Q&A time, where the 360-degree view. When they said 360-degree view, I was literally thinking that my head is going to roll, because refunds, so many things have happened. Starting from the first 2 years where we had manual refunds, but initially when GST was introduced, it was promised and proposed that everything will be online. And we managed to go online only somewhere in August and September of 2019. Though we went online, the circular was issued in November 2019. So things became a little easier. Our sanity was restored in terms of refunds related activities from November 2019. What are all the issues that have either cropped up recently or which have been addressed, though belatedly, but have been addressed? And then issues which are still not addressed, and at large they are a risk for any taxpayer, be it a engagement where we are the auditors, or be it an engagement where we are a consultant advising them. Now there where we have to be sure, or where we have to take a call. Now those are the aspects I thought we will discuss today. So in that context, the first thing which we have been pleading right from day one is the cash ledger refund. Now the key question that was hanging for so long is that whenever I pay money into my electronic cash ledger, is it considered to be a tax? Now, right from central excise era, the money that is lying in my PLA, the personal ledger account as it was called in the central excise, was never considered to be a tax. It is my money in the current account with the government. So the provisions pertaining to refund of tax technically should not apply to the money that is lying in my electronic cash ledger, which was the plea that we have been taking right from day one. This plea became stronger and stronger post 1st October 2018, because the provisions of section 51 and 52, that is TDS and TCS under GST, did not take off on 1st July 2017. It came into being only from 1st October 2018. What it led to was that, let's say I am a person who's a trader whose margin is between 8% to 10%, but I'm also supplying to government departments. So invariably what happens, I have a lot of ITC. Over and above that, the government department does TDS, or the bank to whom I supply, be it any government department, government entity, who are all made applicable under section 51 to do a TDS under GST, they will deduct the 2% from my GST and they will remit it to the department, which I can claim, but it will come and sit in my cash ledger. I will never be able to use it because I already have enough ITC. Because my business margin is very low and I keep a high inventory, because of that, always I will have ITC, but what is the use of this TDS? The purpose of TDS was that to widen the tax base. People who are supplying to government and government departments, they wanted to identify, like typically the income tax TDS, they wanted to identify those people. That was the intention. But what it created was working capital problem. Then we started saying, sir, please understand, the cash ledger balance we can claim as refund. Now, when I approached for the first time to an officer, he was shocked. How can you ask cash ledger balance as refund? Did you pay it by mistake? He said, no, we didn't pay it by mistake. It was credited by electronic means by the other person filing GSTR 7. He said, never we can give, only after assessment. If there is no liability, we will give. When will the assessment happen? He had no clue. So in GST, there is no concept of assessment. It is all self-assessment. If at all our file is taken for scrutiny, we have to see it whenever it comes. So I was not able to prevail over in my first attempts, but later on I started convincing the officers after Circular 125. In November 2019, it was made amply clear that cash ledger refund can be given without any support documents. But still, the department officers started insisting, when did the accumulation happen? They started saying the accumulation happened 2 years back. Now, technically under section 54, I have only 2 years time limit to give a refund. If you come and ask me after that, I will not be able to give a refund. Now this, we had vehemently opposed, we made representations, and finally, circular number 166 last month was given, which is a much needed relief. Had it not been given, I would have still discussed this point as a problem. But good that it has been addressed, so I will discuss it as a problem which has now seen a solution. But the good thing is, it need not be retrospective. What the circular has clarified is that it is a refund that you are entitled to, and it is not a tax refund. Hence, whatever balance is in your electronic cash ledger, you can seek. There is no time limit for it. The balance in the electronic cash ledger is there, which you feel that you will not be able to utilize. The officer does not see any loss of revenue, meaning you have long pending dues which you do not pay, and you still ask me electronic cash ledger refund, maybe he will object. If there is no known default from your side, there is no reason why he cannot give the refund. That has been clarified, and that is what is in a way going to help many of our clients. Because when we look at their P&L, we know that they are making profit, but at the end of the day, cash is a reality. So when we look at the cash, they will have ITC running into lakhs, or in some of the cases crores, especially traders. And in some of the cases of those traders who are mainly supplying to government and government-related entities, people who are supplying to corporations, municipalities, and then the government organizations, they will have this GST TDS accumulating in their cash ledger, which can be released. So one change or one amendment which has resulted in a huge opening of an avenue is this cash ledger. The other aspect, which most of us would have explored already, zero-rated supply-related refund. In other words, I'll very briefly apprise about the zero-rated supply. In GST, we have to clearly distinguish between exempted and zero-rated. Because exempted also there is no GST, not taxable also there is no GST, zero-rated also there is no GST. But all are not one and the same. Because zero-rated are transactions which are zero-rated. Whereas exempted and not taxable are goods or services which are considered as exempted or not taxable. Completely different logic. To simplify it, salt. Salt which I am manufacturing and selling it within India, it is exempted. But that salt, if it is exported, it is considered as zero-rated. Because salt as a goods is exempted, but the transaction of export is called zero-rated. Now, if I am an exporter of salt, exporter of flowers, ornamental flowers, will I be entitled for GST refund? Yes. Because your product might be exempted because it is freshly cut flowers, but can I get refund of it for whatever GST that I incur in the course or furtherance of my business? Yes, as long as you do exports, or proportion to your exports, you will be able to get refunds. Because zero rating is completely different. So zero rating can be either export of goods or services, or zero rating can be for the supplies that we make to SEZ, Special Economic Zones. Could be the developer of the Special Economic Zone or unit inside a Special Economic Zone. So this is the perimeter of what can be zero-rated supply under GST, section 16, subsection 1 of the IGST Act. Keeping in line with that, when it comes to export, the definition of export of goods under GST was restricted, or in a way was carried forward from the customs, stating that export simply means that taking of goods from India to a place outside India, which meant physically the goods should move from India to outside India. Else it will never be treated as exports. We may earn in foreign exchange also for a transaction, but the goods have never left India or never gone outside India to a destination outside India. Even if we realize forex, it will not be considered as export for the purpose of GST. This is with respect to goods. But where it lacked the teeth, or where it missed out, was that in case of export of goods, there was no condition, either as a precondition or a post-condition, stating that you should have realized money in convertible foreign exchange. Now this resulted in people rampantly misusing this provision, exporting things or exporting just cardboard boxes and just saying we have done export, let's get refund. The wrongly availed ITC was not just wrongly availed ITC, was converted into cash. Because of this condition, or there was no condition that export of goods, there should be a realization of foreign exchange, which they realized. And only, I think a day before the first lockdown, 22nd or 23rd of March 2020, they had inserted this Rule 96B, which is very important for us from a statutory audit perspective, contingent liability reporting, as well as from a GST perspective, because now they have made it mandatory post March 2020, and for exports that have happened earlier also this will apply, for the simple reason that if you do not realize foreign exchange and you have done export of goods and you have claimed refund, then you should pay the refund back if you are not realizing the money within the timelines stipulated by FEMA. So the timeline stipulated by FEMA is there in the RBI Master Circular, which says 9 months from the date of invoice. So this timeline is not coming from GST law. It is borrowed from FEMA. So this unique thing we need to look at. So our clients who have done export of goods, then immediately we need to check whether they have realized foreign exchange. No, they don't realize foreign exchange. Is that a problem? Hold on. It is not a problem now. I'll clarify. If you make exports, you do not claim refund, you do not realize foreign exchange, then it is not a problem now. But what the government is proposing to do is, this rule is now upgraded into a section. Now generally what we see is whatever they cannot achieve through the act, they will try to do it through the rule, which is wrong, and ultimately it will be held against the law. But what they have done now is introduced a restriction as a rule, and now this rule is getting elevated as a section which has been amended by the Finance Act of 2021, yet to be notified. It means this restriction is going to be part of the law itself. It is not just the rule. And how it looks like in the current situation is, when any of our clients have done export of goods, the question that we need to ask is whether you have claimed refund or not. It could be LUT route or it could be with payment of tax, because in goods there is a higher probability that they would have gone with the option of with payment of IGST. In that case, they will get the refund directly from the customs department. So either way, if they had sought refund, then only we need to worry, because if they had sought refund and got it, forex realization is mandatory as of today for all the periods that they have done so far. If they have not realized foreign exchange, the money that they have gotten as refund, they will have to pay it back with 18% interest. Did we make provisions for it? Is the question that we may have to ask. And then if they have not sought refund, as I said earlier, it is not a problem as of today, because forex realization mandatory condition happens only if you have claimed refund. But soon, when the section amendment gets notified, it will become applicable for any kind of export of goods. So this is one change that was made, which is a revenue interested change, but which is in a way good, because the governance, the purpose of giving a benefit to a zero-rated transaction is foreign exchange will have to come into India. Now that gets defeated if that condition is not there, because they have realized and put it in place. The other aspect, which even yesterday, day before yesterday, we have been discussing at length in various places. When people make exports from India, there are two international contractual terms. There are multiple terms, but I want to take up two into our discussion, which is I can make an export from India under FOB terms. So I'll just keep it in the port in India. From there, all the expenses need to be incurred by the foreign buyer. The example is the freight and insurance from India to the place of destination. All that will be incurred by them. That is FOB terms. CIF terms is when I come and deliver it at your premises, meaning a person exporting from India will deliver it to the customer's premises. What is the issue here? The issue is the Circular 125, I think paragraph number 45, has been misinterpreted in most of the cases where department is sanctioning refund. How? My export value, FOB is $8,000. CIF is $10,000. This is how it is there in my shipping bill. I have entered into a CIF transaction. In my GST return, I show this $10,000 equivalent in Indian rupees as my export value. And I think that that is the amount for which I'll be able to get a refund. But invariably, the officers who are granting refund say that I will give you refund only on FOB. Because beyond FOB, even your duty drawback and other benefits are given only on the FOB value. We will not give it on the CIF value. But SSC has actually exported value worth $10,000 and he has realized $10,000 also. This is because in Circular 125, they have given a wording which is loosely for some other purpose, stating that whenever there is a difference, whichever is lower shall be taken. But what they had mentioned there or intended to state there was with respect to the export turnover as per GSTR 1 vis-a-vis export turnover as per GSTR 3B. If there is going to be a difference between these two for a month, the assessee is claiming refund for the month. Which export turnover needs to be taken? Whichever is lower. Shipping bill is higher, invoice is lower, then take invoice. No, the other way around, then take the shipping bill. That is what they wanted to clarify. But officers are interpreting it differently, and I'm not sure how it has happened. Uniformly, whether it is state or central officer or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka officer, all of them have interpreted the same way. So they are going by FOB interpretation, though I have done my exports on CAF basis. This remains unaddressed. Hence, if any of the client is expecting a refund or fighting for a refund, having done the transaction in CAF basis, tell them that they are not alone. Many people are still suffering from this lack of clarity in terms of whether the refund will be given on FOB or CAF. Department obviously will take a conservative approach on FOB basis. And then comes the discussion on export of services. Because zero rated, we have covered the important aspects from goods perspective. From a service perspective, the 5 cumulative conditions under 2 subsection 6 of the IGST Act. Only if all these 5 are satisfied, a transaction will be considered as export of services. So here, 2 important elements I want to pick up and discuss. One is on the place of supply. The other one is on the realization of foreign exchange, because practically this is where we face issues. The place of supply issue, all I want to highlight is in GST, somehow in the last 2-3 months since the courts have started working, things are becoming like a score tracker in a cricket match. So if we are busy in a client meeting or something, some minutes later we will still check what is the score. No, that is how GST, certain aspects we are advising also. Because for example, 14th of December, we know that Mohit Minerals case law is going to be addressed. I mean, it is listed in the Supreme Court. Now, what is it relevant for? CIF basis import, ocean freight reverse charge. Whether it is legal or not. It is going to be addressed by Supreme Court. What is the, thing surrounding it is huge liability. If the Supreme Court says it is legal, all of us who have not paid it from 1st of July 2017 till today will have to pay it with interest. And we will not get ITC. Because department will say you are paying it beyond the time limit. We will still have to fight for ITC, that's a separate fight. But if department does not win the case, Supreme Court says it is illegal, you cannot have this reverse charge. On 14th December, they come out with that decision. Then an interesting situation arises. People who have rightly paid, they would have taken ITC also. Now, the tax itself is held illegal. How can you take ITC for it? When you pay a wrong tax, you can only claim the tax back as refund. You cannot take ITC for it. Now, people who have complied with the law so far will be in peril. So imagine, this is how things are changing with the judgments. Now, one such judgment is the Dharmendra M. Jani case law with respect to intermediary services, where an interesting thing had happened. I'll just briefly put up the interesting thing in the Mumbai High Court. In a 2-member bench, one member has held, that is the judicial member has held that it is not constitutional to have intermediary services place of supply outside India, meaning place where the intermediary is located. It should be where the recipient is located, which is against what is there in section 13 subsection 8. The other member had opined that it is correct. The law is perfect. Now, these 2 members being not agreeing to a point, it has been referred to the Chief Justice. Now, Chief Justice is going to say yes or no, will change the whole game. All those intermediary service providers who had already thought that a person sitting in India doing the intermediary services for another person in India, organizing for goods and taking commission from him. Though he might be getting the commission in foreign exchange also. Sometimes he might be doing it on behalf of a foreign person in India. He would have earned the money in forex. Still, place of supply falls in India because where intermediary is located, he will not be able to get refund. On the other hand, he is liable to pay tax also, which he has complied so far. But if the judgment says it is unconstitutional, he will be restored to a situation where his turnover will be considered as export, where he can claim refund. And what about all the taxes that he paid? He can claim that also as refund. He can claim ITC, and all that ITC has left he can claim as refund. He can get the tax paid also as refund. It's going to open up something very big, which is why I said, when this decision is going to come, and it's a Mumbai High Court decision, so let's wait and see. But one interesting area is place of supply when it comes to supply of services. Because this place of supply, even in case of software companies, there is an issue where the contract, the way it is termed, some of the officers are saying it is not a supply of software service. In fact, these people are doing intermediary service. They say we are facilitating. When you say you facilitate, the supply of software services from here, you do not employ people. They get some hired labor and they do it. Or from a third-party vendor, they try to do it. And they call it as export of service, and they have got the benefit of export of service so far. But while doing audit, department people are coming back and saying, when I looked at the contract, it is not suggesting that you are rendering the service. You are only facilitating the service. When you are an intermediary and facilitating the service, you are liable to pay GST. That is the stand department is taking. So IT and ITES are in for a huge change because of this. So please keep a tab on this judgment. The other aspect I wanted to practically highlight is the realization of foreign exchange. Whenever we approach for the department for refund, in case of export of services, the main document that they ask is foreign inward remittance certificate. But many of us were not aware in the first day, and later we were made aware by a banker citing the circular that he told me the same word, Shankar, we have stopped giving FIRC. Then I told him, no, how can you stop? He said, no, RBI has given a circular saying you should all go to EBRC. I said, no, I am a service provider. How can I go to EBRC? For that also they have given you a procedure. In case you do not know, I'll give you the procedure. He gave me the procedure. Either you go under, get registered under STPI as a non-STPI. You get registered under STPI, but as a non-STPI, there is a possibility where even your export of service, you will file the SOFTEX. Connected to that, you will be able to get a EBRC. And that is the authentic document as of today, which is accepted by RBI. There is no FIRC. But still, people try to get a certificate from the banker. We try to prevail over the officer, saying that, see, in circular 125, it has been mentioned that FIRC/other document. So this is that other. Using this other as the word, we are trying to get it. But ideally, all our service providers must be brought under the EBRC route. Now find out whether we get registered under the Service Export Promotion Council of India or we come under STPI, whichever is the option. Find out the option, educate the assessee to go under that option so that at least from future, we have a solid FIRC to manage. Further, as I said, these are the two critical points on the export of services which I wanted to take up. And with the pressure from the assessee also to try and see how they can do it. But the easiest route for the officer here is to say refund is not eligible. Because once or twice he'll make a show cause notice or ask you to provide further documents. There is no knowledge of the assessee's business. Genuinely from their point of view also I'm looking at it. If it is your jurisdictional officer who is sanctioning the refund, he would know what is the type of business that you are doing. But if it is not your jurisdictional officer, he's always worried that somebody is taking a refund not very legal. That is how it will sound to him. Now, how come he has got so much of ITC? How did he manage to get? Why is he applying only for this month? Why he did not apply for the earlier months? All these questions will come. Eventually, if he is not able to get convinced with the documents that we are supplying, then our refund is bound to get rejected. What it will result in is litigations. Because the next step that is available for us when an RFD 06 is issued with a rejection order, we don't have an option to refile and all. We have to go only for an appeal to the appellate authority, which is what is this trend that is starting. Please bear that in mind for two reasons. One, we will have to upgrade ourselves to file the APL 01s and start functioning for the refund activity. Two, we will have to also educate our clients slowly that unless we give the data properly, there is bound to be a rejection. So get ready for it. And then the LUT, one of the grossly understated or underrated document in GST RFD 11. The issue with this is that we are actually giving a huge claim over there. It is like a marketing or a sales pitch. We are telling three important things to the President of India. We don't give this to even the proper officer. The LUT is given to the President of India where we are saying, I will do export of goods without payment of IGST and I will ensure that within 3 months from the date of invoice, goods will be sent outside India. If I am doing export of services, I am giving my word that I will do export of services without payment of IGST and I will realize the money within 1 year from the date of the export invoice. I will realize it in convertible foreign exchange. We are giving these two words. Now, where is it given? Like the I agree button, which we do not even regard whenever we enter into any websites. Same way it is there in LUT. 3 buttons will be there. Anybody in our office, they wouldn't have read the 3 buttons, click, 2 witness. Mostly our office person's name will be given with our address. Our client's accountant name will be given. Click, sir, over, sir, LUT generated. This year is saved. No, by doing that, what we are doing is we are giving a huge commitment to the government where, especially 2021, what would have happened is all IT and ITES companies, when we are finalizing the P&L balance sheet, look at their data. when their debtors is having more than 1-year-old export invoices, get ready. Because you gave an LUT saying that I will realize the money within 1 year from the date of invoice. We never realized, meaning the assessee did not realize. So it is still there in the debtors. We have signed the balance sheet that it is part of the debtors, which means we have agreed that they have not realized within 1 year. So what is the recourse? 96A says, come and pay the tax along with interest at 18%. Then what about my refund? Whenever you realize, come and apply for the refund. Interest is gone. Now this is happening after 1 year. So you'll have to pay interest for 1 year straight away, and we have to do it within 15 days from the expiry of 1 year, which if we do not do, we are even liable for a penalty if the officer finds out. So it is a cat and mouse game, whether he will find out us first or whether we will do it ourselves suo moto. Another area where liability quantification should have happened from our side. So like the export forex realization in case of goods, I'm bringing in the LUT conditions also, because we are giving the two important conditions, which if we breach, we are in for a huge financial loss, which is certain. Interest liability is certain. Tax at least you pay, but subsequently when we realize the money, we'll be able to apply for refund again and say that, sir, I have done the export in case of goods, or in case of services, I have realized the money, but not within 1 year. Later, now I am applying for refund. Yes, you can apply for refund. This can happen. So hence, please keep a tab on this. The other two unique refunds, the reason I had taken up these two refunds are, they are also refunds, but they need a special treatment. Again, either the law has missed a point as to how this is to be calculated. It is not told. Rule 89.4A and 4B is what I'm going to discuss now, because 89.4 I'm reserving it for later. 89.4 is the formula based refund on ITC, refund of ITC on zero rated supplies. 4A and 4B are what? Transactions which are making you eligible for a refund, but these are not zero rated transactions. One such transaction is a merchant trader. When he is trying to merchant exporter, he is trying to buy from me. What happens? Now, simply put, I am a seller. I am a person within India and I am selling it to a person who is a merchant exporter. He says that I am a merchant exporter. What does it mean? He will not do anything with the goods. He will just export it. Maybe he will aggregate it along with some other goods, but his primary intention is to export it out of India. Now, that is what he has in his mind. I can readily supply to him, but from 1st July 2017, there was no notification or anything. So we were supplying to that merchant exporter at 18%. They made representations repeatedly to the government saying, if my supplier is going to charge me 18%, knowing very well that I'm going to do exports only, then that 18% I have to pay. I will take it as ITC. But subsequently, when I make an export, then I'll have to claim it as refund. The time delay between paying them and getting it as ultimately refund, my working capital is getting locked, due to which I'm not able to be competitive in the international market. So why don't you give a consideration? Based on this, notification 40/2017, CGST rate notification was issued, wherein they said, fine, the seller in India is selling to another person in India who holds his position to be a merchant exporter. Then you may supply to him under this notification at 0.1% GST. It need not be the actual rate, 0.1%. If it is CGST, SGST means 0.05% CGST, 0.05% SGST, or if it is IGST, 0.1%. I can supply to him. Now, this merchant exporter, he makes a supply to the foreign customer. Fine. Now, these two transactions, the supply by the merchant exporter to the foreign buyer, to the foreign person, is coming under zero rated, because he has procured the goods from this person, but he has exported the goods only. So he will go under the category of a person who has exported the goods. But whereas the person, the seller in India, who is selling it to the merchant exporter in India, is also at a disadvantageous position, because his purchases would be at 18, but his sale would be only at 0.1%. Now what does it do is increases ITC. Now can he claim that ITC as refund? He can, but not as an exporter, because he didn't do export, but he can claim it under inverted duty structure. What is inverted duty structure? 54.3 clearly says that where the tax on my input is at a higher rate compared to the tax on my output is 0.1%, which is the reason why they did not make it as completely zero. They made the tax as minimal as possible, 0.1%. The reason is that, so this person can claim inverted duty structure. So this transaction, two types of refunds are possible.
The ability to first segregate it into two and then apply for refunds is something which we have to first possess and be able to convince the client as well as the officer. And then say, sir, see, I am not claiming the inverted duty structure. I am an exporter. So I am claiming export refunds. Whereas the other person who has supplied to me, he can also claim refund, but he will not claim export refund. My supplier will claim inverted duty refund. This segregation is not very clearly defined in the rules as well, which is creating confusions when it comes to sanctioning of refund. Officers are adopting various different methodologies, which is not there in the law. And we plead to the officers repeatedly that, sir, there is no mechanism to calculate. Then why do you calculate in this manner? He says there is no mechanism. No, then it is up to me. So which is where we are, going into the next level of appellate authority, or some of the cases have gone up to the high courts. We'll have to wait and see whether how this will get changed in the days to come. The same kind of transaction, but comes under the other subclause 4A is that deemed export transaction. In GST, what we need to be basically aware is that the word deemed exports is used only in the CGST law. It is not there in the IGST Act itself, which means that they never intended exports to include deemed exports. Exports are completely separate. Deemed exports are completely different under section 147 of the CGST Act. Now, this deemed exports, only 4 transactions have been notified by virtue of this notification 48/2017. The 4 transactions being supplied to an EOU or supplied to a person who is holding an license given by DGFT. It could be an advance authorization license for import of inputs or raw materials, or it could be an EPCG license holder when I am supplying to him. Or the fourth category is again a license holder, but a unique kind of transaction, which is banks which are supplying to a jeweler or a jewelry manufacturer gold, any bullion metal, supplying to them, where that person who is procuring from the bank is holding a license, advance authorization. These 4 transactions are considered as deemed exports. What is the benefit here? Strictly speaking, the benefit is actually accruing after the transaction, which means this transaction cannot be done under LUT. This transaction, we will have to pay GST. Then where is the benefit? You pay the GST, then you can claim it as refund. That is where the benefit is. So we need to first perform and then only ask for the refund. If I pay the tax, meaning I have made supply to an EOU, 1 lakh rupee plus 18,000. Now I have paid that 18,000 to the department. Who will claim refund? That is where it is even more interesting. The law as well as this notification provides, read with circular number 125, it says either the supplier or the recipient, in case of a deemed export transaction, can apply for refund. It is not both. Either the supplier or the recipient. How can it be open for both of them? It is because who bears the burden of the tax and proves that he has borne the burden can go for refund. For example, an EOU is a bigger corporate. I am a smaller vendor to them. They say that, sir, we are an EOU. Whenever you supply 1 lakh plus 18,000, fine, I will pay you only 1 lakh. I'll say, okay, sir, because I need that business. He will pay me only 1 lakh. I will pay this 18,000 to the department. Then I will claim it as refund as a supplier. Now, the situation is other way around. The EOU is a smaller corporate, whereas the supplier is a bigger corporate. He says, sir, you may be an EOU. I will supply always with the GST. You have to pay me 1 lakh and 18,000. Fine. In this case, EOU will pay them 1 lakh and 18,000. This 18,000 can be taken as ITC by the EOU and they can claim it as refund depending upon their exports, or if they are going to be an advance authorization holder, they can claim that amount under this provision. So this is again a unique proposition in refund, not very commonly known, which once we are aware, we should be able to demonstrate and get the refunds. Here again, the methodology, the mechanism in terms of clear-cut formula is not there. So there are bound to be litigations on this part, which I feel should be addressed at the earliest by the department. And then the zero rated supplies, the core area 89.4. Now here what happens is, whenever we make any zero rated supply, like I discussed earlier, the 2 options that are available with us is with the payment of IGST or without payment of IGST. If I do it with payment of IGST, the tax that I have paid is all that I will get as refund. So there is no need for a formula for calculating what I will get as a refund. But if I am going under the option of without payment of IGST, then I have to now apply only for a refund under the ITC route. For that refund under the ITC route, 89.4 has got the formula in place. And that is a formula which has got over a period of time refined as well. But in some of the cases, it is not the refinement that we expected came through. It is some restriction that have come through, which is what I wanted to highlight. The first one is to just look at the formula in a synopsis. It says on the numerator, we will take all your zero rated supplies. The denominator will be your aggregate turnover multiplied by your net ITC. A simple proportion is what they have done. But every element in this formula has got a separate meaning, which is there in 89.4. But the painful areas are in case of export of goods, zero rated supply of goods. I would not even use the word export. Zero rated supply of goods. It could be to an SEZ. It could be export outside India. They put in a condition from March 2020 stating that your export price cannot exceed 1.5 times the price at which it is sold within India. Now, they did not say that you cannot sell beyond that price. What they said is, if you want to claim refund, we will only take 1.5 times of your local selling price as the export value. In other words, simple example, in Tamil Nadu, there is a place called Salem, where the mangoes are famous, Krishnagiri district mangoes. The mango, 1 kg, if I sell within Tamil Nadu, I'll sell it at 100 rupees. But I'm getting an order from Malaysia. They are ready to pay 600 rupees per kg. Now I'm exporting to them at 600 rupees per kg. But since I am selling it within Tamil Nadu only for 100 rupees per kg, they will take as my export turnover only 150. It is restricted to 1.5 times the value at which I'm selling it or the price at which I'm selling it within India. So this gets even more interesting where I do not sell my product within India at all. I manufacture and sell it only outside India. When we applied for refund, the officer said, no, I want what is the local price. He said, sir, we don't supply within India at all. It is only exported. No, then you do one thing. You get a competitive quote from one of your competitors in India. That how much he will charge. Why is it, sir? No, then only I will know what is the local price for it. Then I will check whether it is 1.5 times of it. Now, this is stretching it a bit far. The restriction on 1.5 times was brought in for a different purpose, but a genuine exporter is made to ask his competitor to give a letter. Now, these days, what happens is these two have some understanding. So they exchange letters. When you apply for refund, I will give a letter. When I apply for refund, you start giving letters. So it has become a customary thing rather than the real intention of the law is lost. And it went even more interesting for one of my case in Bengaluru, where the supply to an SEZ, the officer asked, where is the 1.5 times certificate? Sir, it is in SEZ, sir. So what? It is zero rated, no? Sir, it is SEZ within India. No, it doesn't matter. I want a certification that it is not exceeding 1.5 times the price at which you sell within India. It is already within India only. He wouldn't agree. Then I said, fine, sir, we have sold it at a price lesser than 1.5 times the price at which it is generally sold within India. Then he agreed. But the real essence or the purpose of this provision is what is a little scary, and it is delaying refunds in some of the cases and leading to even rejection of refunds, which is not fair, is in my view. So this is one pain area in the formula. The second pain area which needs to be addressed is the value of export of services. $1 million question. Even last week, I had a huge discussion with one of the officers, went up to C&AG and discussed with them also. The issue in contention is, July 2017, I have done an export of service. Today, I have realized the money in convertible foreign exchange. July 2017, I have done the export of services. And today, let's say 11th of December, I have realized the money in convertible foreign exchange. Now, Section 54 explanation to it says that the time limit for applying for refund in case of export of services is the date of invoice or the date of realization of foreign exchange, whichever is later. So that is the relevant date. From that date, within 2 years, I can apply for refund. Technically, since I have realized the money only 11th of December 2021, I have time up to 10th of December 2023 to apply for refund. They agreed. Okay, yes. Now the question is, I told them I will apply for refund for July 2017. The officer was not agreeing. No, you should apply only for December 2021. I asked her why. Oh, the time limit is set that when you realize. I told her, correct members, please understand, the export was done in July. The relevant ITC would have got accumulated in July 2017. Will I accumulate ITC during December 2021 for a service done in July 2017? I will not be. But the legal provision says I will take all the realizations made during the period. Now, this is where it is a huge issue. Some of the officers are agreeing to it. Some of them are not agreeing to it. We are having a tough time convincing them because the law simply says, based upon your realizations, you can apply. But for which period? If I apply for realizations during the period, I am actually at a disadvantageous position because in July 2017, for rendering that service, I would have got huge amount of ITC. But if you make me apply for December 2021, this month I may not even have good ITC. Or I may have huge local turnover, because of which my export realization will become very small because of the proportion. I may not get the refund that I intend to get or that I should have got as a benefit from the government, which is getting denied. But this is not easy. Many levels we are fighting this. So export of services, the clarity that we are begging to know from the department is, you have said that it is realization based, agreed. But when it is realized, should I apply for the month in which it is realized, or should I apply for the month in which the invoice was raised? Ideally, it should be the month in which the invoice was raised. If I say that, what it brings along with it is that till 2023 December 10th, they cannot stop us from applying for 2017 refund. That will still be open. But they have in between done one thing where they have said, if the subsequent month you are going to apply for refund, previous month will have to be made as nil. Now this has made me file nil returns for those periods. So I am now forced to apply only for December 2021. Not a situation which was intended. The benefit was intended to be given to a person on the ITC that he has availed. But somehow we have come across ITC, we have come away from that, and we are now giving refund for the month in which it is realized. Luckily, if he has got more ITC during this month, he will get more refund. But which is not the intention of the law. Again, one place where it must be addressed. Luckily, advances they have said need not be taken into consideration. Yes, sir. Yes, you will not be able to apply for the invoice separately. Now, in that case, my suggestion is go for any other refund. That is how we manage it, because any other refund can be applied multiple times also. There is no restriction on it. Yes, sir. The maximum is that, sir, because there is another catch to it. I'm having it in my presentation, the next slide. I'll come to that. That will be addressed. Now, when it comes to ITC, again, there is a challenge which the assessee generally tends to miss, is that the net ITC concept is not clearly defined. 89.4, we might, when we look at the first time, it will say that all the ITC that is pertaining to input and input services. Fine. The ITC which is eligible pertaining to input and input services, what am I supposed to do? I will eliminate all my blocked ITC. Correct. Then only it becomes eligible ITC. But if I had got any exempted turnover, I am supposed to proportionately reverse. Now, are we doing it? No. Many a times it gets done only at the end of the year. Because as per Rule 42, we are supposed to do it on a monthly basis depending upon our exempted turnover. And at the end of the year, 13th reversal. We are supposed to do for the whole year, taking into consideration total exempted turnover for the year divided by total the turnover for the year multiplied by the common ITC. Depending upon the T1, T2, T3 and T4, the calculation as per Rule 42. We are supposed to do it 13 times in a year. 12 times right across all the months, one each, and then 13th time at the end of the financial year. Now, if we had done it, then only the remaining ITC will be called as eligible ITC. That only we should have claimed as refund. But many situations, officers are not insisting. We are not even aware. We apply for refund for the ITC that is reflecting in 3B, meaning what we have filed in 3B. So this is where somewhere we should also add value to the client, saying, no, ultimately it will become ineligible, or this portion will become reduced for exempted turnover. To that extent, let us not claim, or to that extent, we should reduce the net ITC, is where we should also have that awareness. That is the reason why the net ITC portion, we should be a little careful in exercising what is eligible ITC, though it is not specifically given in the law. I agree that it is not given in 89.4 that you should eliminate the exempted turnover related ITC, but it does give us a clue, because it says on the denominator of total turnover, don't take exempted turnover. Why they are saying that is, if exempted turnover is taken in the denominator in this refund calculation, the denominator will look big, your refund amount will come down. So for that purpose, when they say don't include it in the denominator, then we should also be helping the department by not including the ITC pertaining to the exempted turnover on the multiplier, which is what is equity, I believe, but not been clarified so far. And the other aspect is, as Sarah had already pointed out, what is the amount that I will get as refund? It goes through 3 filters. The amount that we had calculated through the formula, that is the answer number 1. And we have to compare it with answer number 2. It sounded on day 1 like the day 1 I started reading income tax 1013A, I believe, the house rent allowance. It looked something very similar. I was taken back to those days. It said, take the formula, then come to the next step. What is the ITC carry forward as at the end of the month for which you are applying for refund? Okay. And then take the ITC balance in the electronic credit ledger as of today, when you are making the application for refund. Whichever is lower of the 3 will only be given to you as refund. Now, if you think the problem is over here, no. And there also they say first IGST. So you cannot just go and say, I will take whatever head is there, I will take. No. There also there is an order. First IGST, then CGST, then only SGST. For this order not being followed, we have had applications rejected. Everything was perfect. He said, no, you have not followed the erstwhile circular number 58, so we are not giving refund. You should have first set of IGST, then only you should have offset. I said, sir, any ITC is ITC. You give me a refund and then I'll be able to, rejig it in my next 3B. He said, no, you have not applied, so we are rejecting the refund. We are on appeal for that. It's been 2 years. The case has not reached the next level, but imagine the pain that one has to go through. So circular number 125 has this, but it is 127 pages. We may have to go through that while we are processing any refund. There, this calculation of 3, and in this 3, there is an order, is something which we can look into as a finer point. The next stop for us is the formula related problem again, but this is relating to inverted duty structure. One good thing about inverted duty structure is this express has started from Gujarat, went to Madras, and then it now has reached the Supreme Court and it has come to a halt. BKC footwear case, where the issue is something which I will briefly explain. Similar formula has been given for inverted duty structure, but the only drawback in that formula is for the inverted duty turnover, only the ITC pertaining to inputs were allowed. Your input services should not be taken into consideration. Imagine, most of my services are 18%, including chartered accountant services. As a associate, I'm getting those services. That is required and used in my business. But since my goods or my output is going to be service or goods, whatever, is suffering from inverted duty, I am entitled only the refund on the inputs, meaning the net ITC to be taken for the calculation is only the input on the ITC on inputs. Input services should not be considered. As it is, capital goods is not considered. So that itself is a blow for me. The ITC on capital goods is not considered. But at least there we can take a bit of solace that we can capitalize it for the depreciation purpose, income tax purpose, and claim depreciation on it. It will come over a period of time. But when it comes to input services not being taken, was a huge hit to the taxpayer in terms of accumulation of ITC. What will they do with the accumulation of ITC? It has to be taken down to P&L. We had a situation where a jewelry manufacturer had got about 40 crores of ITC accumulated in 3 years. That is simply because his output is 3%. For a jeweler, the output is 3%, but he has got rental of premises, rental of showrooms in malls and various places. He has got commissions to be paid. All are coming at 18% services. So his ITC, he's flush with ITC of 40 crores, which he can never utilize in his life. Because next gold that he purchases, he will get ITC of 3%. The margin is very slender. So when he sells also, this will offset with little help from the other ITC. Whatever he has accumulated has now rolled down to P&L. In other terms, they revisited their costing structure itself because of inverted duty structure not being in favor of them. This judgment resulted in that. So as I said, the express started in Gujarat, where it started with a green flag, where BKC Footwear's case, Gujarat High Court, somehow Gujarat High Court is in favor of the taxpayers most of the times. So they said, yes, go ahead, you are entitled for input services also. Went to Madras High Court, where they challenged the constitutionality, the constitutional validity of the, excluding the input services, which was held to be valid. So now we had a situation where Madras High Court is for the department, Gujarat High Court is against the department or for the assessee. Went to the Supreme Court on the special leave petition, where they have given a ruling, which is, I would say, 90-10. Why 90-10? They have agreed that there is a problem, but they have said that whatever the government has put as restriction is not wrong, but we would recommend the department to relook into the formula. so that you make the formula in a dynamic way that at least some of the services are includable. In some of the ways, the service related ITC is also given back as refund, which has not happened till today. So they are not notified. So Supreme Court has given this and they have given a time. We'll have to wait and see when this will eventually come. But there is a direction from the Supreme Court. So whoever is accumulating ITC on this count, thinking that somewhere I will get this inverted duty refund, tell your clients that you may not get fully. So can we consider writing off some portion in this financial year? At the end of the financial year, move it from current asset, run it down to P&L. At least income tax, if at all, if it is there, we'll be able to save something on the income tax front. The other key area with respect to the refunds, which again, from day one, we have been fighting, not day one, I would say from 2018, mid we were fighting was that. I've explained the case here. March 2019, I have done the zero rated supplies. 2-year time limit expires on 31st March 2021. Don't ask me whether it's goods or service. This example is from a different perspective. So 31st March 2021, 2-year time limit expires. I am making a refund application on 29th March. So I have made 2 days before the expiry of 2 years, because if I do it after 31st of March, it will become my time barred refund. Officer will not even entertain my application. I have made it on 29th March. The officer gives me a deficiency memo, because in GST refunds, it is not from the date we apply, it is from the date the officer issues acknowledgement. The meter starts ticking. It is like a chess game. We finish our move, we touch our button. The timer starts running for the opponent. So when he gives an acknowledgement, then only he is actually starting his clock. Till the time he doesn't give an acknowledgement, it is only an application pending. The officer has got the right to give a deficiency memo. That is not a rejection. You can reapply. But when he gives a deficiency memo, he is giving it on 3rd April. Now, I am forced to apply only on 3rd April. Let's say I'm applying it on 3rd April. He will reject it now, saying that it is time barred. Because your time was 31st of March. Happened in one of our case. In our case, the example was 2019 August, 2018 August, 2020 August. I applied 7 times in the last 3 days. 7 times he gave deficiency memo. Then 8th time, 2nd day, on 2nd September, he gave a deficiency memo and said it is time barred. So we could not get the refund, but all along we had applied for 5 days. That is when we realized that the time taken by the officer from the date I make the application till he gives deficiency memo, if that is excluded from the overall time limit, at least when he gives the rejection, when he gives the deficiency memo, I will still have that number of days to reapply, which was represented from various quarters. And then finally, Rule 90 sub Rule 3 was amended this year, in the middle of the year only. They made this amendment, and from there they said, if for the same situation, if you are going to make an application on 29 March, the officer gives a deficiency memo on 3rd April, don't worry, you have time. So because when you applied, you had 3 days time, 29, 30, 31. The same 3 days time from 3rd April, 3, 4, 5, you will now get it. So my time limit does not end there. So if the officer is unduly delaying giving deficiency memo, don't worry, your time will not expire. When he gives a deficiency memo, whatever time delay that he has taken from the date we made an application till he gave a deficiency memo, to that extent, your period of limitation will not apply. From that many days, you will get as extension. This is put in the rule itself. A very welcome change, but it was done prospectively. For people like me who had suffered earlier, there is no relief. So we need to go only to the appellate or the next level forum saying, why can't this amendment be considered as retrospective? Yes, sir. There is a different relief for you, which is in Supreme Court suo motu writ petition, which I am coming a little later. I think you are 2 slides ahead of me. So you will have to hold on, sir. Yeah. Which is the next slide that I have got. The other key relief, which in a way I am propelled by the Madras High Court judgment as well. So I'll just give a brief of this. Again, from now on till December, if you thought life is going to be a little easy, I'm sure it is not, because income tax timelines and income tax website. But if you thought that, no, still I am able to manage, we have some other pressure, which is a positive pressure. The suo motu writ petition 3/2020, which was filed to extend all the due dates or to give the period of limitation relief, which was given by the Supreme Court. 3 orders were passed. One was in March, the other one was in April, and then they have passed one on 23rd September. Saying that, the final order is what I wanted to tell. Any kind of suit appeal application proceeding, which has fallen due between 15th March 2020 till 2nd October 2021, Gandhi Jayanti, you can remember, till 2nd October 2021. Between this time, anything has expired, automatically the time limit will get extended. Up to what time? The time limit will get extended up to the period of limitation that got expired in between, or 90 days, whichever is higher. I'll give a simple example. 20th March 2020, my time limit to make an appeal has expired. 20th March 2020. So I had only 5 days. From 15th March to 20th March 2020, only 5 days, but I am falling within this period. Now it is 5 days or 90 days, whichever is greater. So from 2nd October 2021, I have time technically up to 31st December 2021 to file that appeal. I may think that no, it is already time barred from the 5th of, by 5 days in 2020. No, from 15th March 2020 till 2nd of October 2021, anything has expired, the amount of time which has got expired after the 15th of March or 90 days, whichever is higher shall prevail from 2nd of October 2021. Technically, for all those people whose refunds has expired during this period also, this should have been made applicable. But department put in a spanner in the works by saying, through a circular, this Supreme Court judgment is not applicable for refund applications. It is only applicable for appeals and adjudication related proceedings, which I felt, or most of us felt, that it is not in line, because the order by the Supreme Court was giving a relief for the hardship faced by the assessee. When I am having hardship to file an appeal, don't you think I will have the same hardship to file an application also? Will it be a different hardship for appeal and different hardship for making a refund application? It should have been made applicable universally, which they specifically did not want to open, which they denied by that circular. But subsequently, people started asking this legal question. Kerala Solicitor General, Attorney General had given a view. The opinion came out first, wherein he said this is applicable even for refund applications. And subsequently, a couple of weeks back, Madras High Court in GNC Infra LLP case have held that, yes, this extension in time limit by the suo motu writ petitions order 3/2020 by the Supreme Court, by the 3-member bench, is applicable even for refund applications. So any of your clients are thinking within this period, my 2-year time limit has gotten over for filing refund application, go and tell them that we have time up to 31st December. Because that is the maximum or the minimum time that we can have. If it is more than 1 year that has got expired during this period, then you will have 1 year from 2nd of October 2021. Still, that is the amount of time we are having. Why am I saying this against the circular? Is because Madras High Court judgment is against the circular. That is the reason why. So this is one area to look in terms of timelines, the latest development. So when we look at it, the 15th March 2020 to 2nd October 2021, this period needs to be excluded for calculating your period of limitation. So anything that is expiring within this period, 90 days or the period which is remaining for us to make that application, the limitation period which got expired within this period, whichever is longer will be taken as the period within which we can make that application or that appeal. Yes. Because 1920 export, it would have got expired only in 2021, somewhere in between. So that 2021, I'm assuming it got the time barring happened sometime before 2nd October 2021. So you have time from 15th March 2020 till the date of expiry. What is the period that you had? That full period you have from 2nd October 2021. So it is not even 31st December. You can do it even after that. Yes. Unless Madras High Court judgment is stayed or any other further proceedings are taken, especially if petition is filed. The other aspect, again, specific to the COVID era, which I wanted to highlight, is the accounting of the refunds that have happened. Now, the refund that I am talking here is not the refund of the ITC or the tax paid on zero rated or those kind of transactions. It is, let's say, a marriage hall, or let's say an auditorium like this, where they have booked the auditorium thinking that on this day we'll be able to conduct this seminar or conduct this marriage. Huge amounts have been paid. They would have got the money, and they would have paid the GST also. But subsequently, the service was never performed. Now, what would this result in? This is where the people who are running these places should have had a basic understanding of GST, and they should have never issued invoice while receiving the money. Because if they had issued invoices, when it comes to services, The moment you issue an invoice, to that extent of the amount covered in the invoice, the service is considered to be completed. It is deemed to be over. But my client comes and says, no, the marriage is not happening because COVID-related restrictions. Give me back the money. They will have to give back the money. But the GST paid it to the department is gone. You cannot raise a credit note because for bad debt, you cannot raise a credit note. The credit note raising situations are only 3, which is as mandated in section 34 subsection 1, which says that either reduction in taxable value or tax value, or when it is return of goods, or when there is a deficiency in supply of service. This doesn't come under any of this. This is act of God, for which we cannot issue a credit note. So the tax paid will become a loss. Had they issued a advance receipt voucher, they would have still paid GST to the department. But now, when the money is being sought back by my customer, I can give a refund voucher. And for that refund voucher, I can claim back the ITC, the GST that I had paid in the advance voucher in my returns. Sir, for example, I got an advance of 10 lakhs plus 18%, 11 lakh and 80,000. This 1 lakh and 80 I had paid as GST. Now the customer is coming and asking me the whole amount as refund. I will give him back the 11 lakh and 80. Now I will raise a refund voucher for 10 lakhs plus 1 lakh and 80. This 1 lakh and 80, which is a negative tax to be paid or negative amount in the liability, I can reduce it from this month's liability, which I have to pay, which is allowed by circular number 26, dated December 2017. No, sir, as it is, there is no turnover. So when I paid him money also, there is a negative ITC, negative GST liability, fine. But in 3B, I cannot show negative, no. I can only show 0 because there is no enough liability to cover this refund. Then you can even apply for refund. Section 54, subsection 8, clause C paves way for it. It says, whenever a tax has been paid, but the supply has never happened, tax has been paid, but the supply never happened, or partially did not happen, to that extent, the refund can be sought. But all this is possible only if we had given advance receipt voucher. If we had given a sales invoice, meaning a tax invoice, gone, because the deeming fiction under section 13 would say, to the extent of the invoice issued, the service is deemed to have been completed. Now, this is one caution area because we do not know when the third or fourth, any other waves, Omicron, anything that happens, at least firefighting need not be done for the future. Past, we will try to fight it out with the department, though we have raised an invoice, but at least for future, we can save the effort in terms of paying the tax and not getting it back. The other powers which has been given to the officers, and recently they have been empowered also, is that when we are applying for a refund and we become eligible for the refund, yes, the officer is also equally having the information to tell that you have so much of dues against you. And now that the departmental audit has started, show cause notices are flying left, right, and center. So they will have a list of liabilities from your side due. So there is a higher possibility that refunds will be held back. They will say that giving you a refund might be against the interest of the government. So they may hold back refunds even up to 1 year. Those powers are there with the officers. So get ready for a situation where if we are on the radar of the department where we have got a huge show cause notice, start acting on the show cause notice legally so that we don't have a binding on our refunds. Else, if you are not acting, they may not come for recovery, but refunds is something which they can always lock. And the other interesting aspect, which is again, after many mistakes have happened, they have shut the door for good, which is whenever assessee claims that I have made excess payment of GST, the excess tax has to be paid as refund. All the assessee needs to do is prove that he has paid excess tax. What has been happening from 2017, or people whoever found it from the day they discovered it? If I am getting more ITC in this month, I do not know how to utilize this ITC. I purposefully will make the whole ITC as payment, though I do not have that much of liability. And then I will apply to the officer saying, I have wrongly paid excess tax, please give me refund. What was happening without, finding out the reason was that they found out that there is an excess payment, but they did not realize that the refund should not be given in cash, but they were giving it in cash. So indirectly what the assessee was doing is converting his ITC into cash without going through the rigors of refund. All he needs to do is pay excess and then go to the officer and say, I have paid excess, give me refund. It will get credited to your bank account. But then they realized that it is a huge scam. 2020 March, they put a restriction to this and said, fine, you paid excess, agreed, but we will now check how the excess has been paid. Whether it has been paid utilizing ITC or whether it has been paid utilizing cash ledger. If it is used the ITC has been used to pay the tax, the money will be given back only to your credit ledger. If the cash ledger has been utilized to pay the tax, I will give back the money into your bank account. If both have been utilized, we will do it proportionately. This came through as a circular only in March 2020. Imagine what all would have happened earlier, which would have necessitated this. So is it possible from here on? No. But is it something which is happening? No. We applied for one such situation. We got the refund in our bank account. I told the assessee never to use that money, immediately made a representation to the department raising a grievance that you have given me a refund. It was a funny situation. The officer called me and said, why are you asking that I have given a wrong refund? I have credited money into your bank account. I said, no, today you will give. 3 years from now, it is like the school or college, no, where they will take us for a picnic. On that day, we will enjoy. Next day, they will ask us to write about the picnic in 200 words. That is when it will be really frustrating. Same way, you will give me refund. This fellow will use that 80 lakhs merrily. 3 years later, you will say, you have taken undue refund in cash. Pay it with 24% interest. So that time he will say, consultant has cheated me. I don't want that to happen. I told him, don't use that money. Apply to the department. Went up to the level of Joint Commissioner. Then they said, fine, you reapply. I will ensure that this time it will be given. You pay it back in DRC 03. We paid that money cash back in DRC 03. Within a span of 15 days, they also cooperated. Gave me the money back in electronic credit ledger. We got the money in electronic credit ledger because this is where we also have to be careful. They may give you the cash refund. Assessee will also be equally happy. Sir, we have got the cash refund. No minute will vanish from his bank account. But very soon we will get a notice. The C&AG audit happens or the departmental audit happens. Please bear that in mind while we are applying for any such kind of excess payment refund. Even that advance related refund that I was talking, there also we have to be careful because the advance, when the tax has been paid for the advance, that time you would have utilized ITC to pay the tax. Then the refund should be given only as ITC. It cannot be given in cash. So the latest developments in terms of the portal, what has happened, which is a welcome change, I would say, or welcome developments, are that the situations where the refund order has been issued, but the money has never reached our bank account, there is an option for us to intimate to the officer that I have not received the refund, but the order has been given. This happens, or this had happened many a times in 2017, 18, and 18, 19. Once this September 2019, post that this has reduced substantially. But prior to that, this was there. So maybe you can use this as an option to reinitiate the matters. And then the another welcome change is that in the GST, the application when we make for the refund, subsequently the officer issues a show cause notice where a personal hearing or a hearing over the electronic media, if it is proposed, we have been given an option which you can see on the screen on the bottom where it will say, you can click on that, you will be able to reschedule. So you need not even have to approach the officer. I think these kind of things were done to make it faceless. So where I don't have to approach the officer seeking extra time, I can seek extra time in the show cause notice itself and saying I need more time. You can reschedule the appointment or reschedule the hearing. That can also be done. So this is another welcome facility which has been given in the refund front. So that is, and then the PMT03 has been made functional in the portal itself. What is PMT03? When partial rejection of my refund happens, or even full rejection of my refund happens, where when I make a refund application, my electronic credit ledger is debited. And subsequently what happens when they reject the refund, it's fine, but it should get credited, no? It doesn't get credited. When we ask them why it doesn't get credited, he says, there is no menu for me. All that was happening for 1.5 years. And then the department had enabled the PMT03 in the online, which you can see just below that order. The hyperlink will be there, which you click and accept that I will not go on appeal against this order. Immediately, it will get a trigger to the officer. It will send a trigger. When he accepts it, the money to the extent which is not given as refund will get credited back to your electronic credit ledger. So for those refunds for which we have not received the credit back, because when we do the reconciliation at the end of the year for GST auditor purposes, electronic credit ledger may not even have this balance because it would have got debited. So in electronic credit ledger, it will not be there. It will be staying in our current asset as refund receivable. But it is technically it will become a credit because it has got rejected. So file PMT03, under the same application it is there, you will be able to get back the money in your credit ledger. No. Refund sanction 1 year, yes. 1 year, yes. From 2019 November, yes, it is. Not for the ones for which the manual application was there. For those, it is not there. So that is all from my side. I think we can take further questions from your side. Yeah. Yes, sir.
how the refund gets affected. I was
Yes.
not able to understand that.
Yes. When I am doing an export, let's say I have got only that turnover during the month. So what happens is the same numericals I will take. $8,000 is my export FOB value. CAF value is $10,000. So what I am considering is this is the only transaction I have done. So my numerator for that calculation of refund is $10,000 divided by $10,000 or equivalent Indian rupee multiplied by net ITC. So ideally the full ITC should come to my account as refund. Officer, what he does is he is taking 8,000 in the numerator. He is saying, no, I cannot give CAF. I will take only whichever is lower. I'll take FOB. When he takes 8,000 on the numerator, but promptly he takes 10,000 on the denominator. So I get only a portion of my ITC as refund where I should have got the full money as refund. That is where we have, in some of the cases, pleaded to the officer saying, I'm okay, sir, you take only FOB. But when you take FOB on the numerator, take FOB on the denominator also. Yes. The insurance and freight are part of the composite supply. The problem is that customs does not recognize the concept of composite supply, GST does. GST says when a good along with the service is given, it is considered as a composite supply. That is why in GST returns, I show it as $10,000. But what happens is that the customs segregates these two as separate, and what is FOB is only considered for the purpose of customs related incentives. They do not give me that benefit. So that is where we are stuck.
Yes, sir. Can
Yeah.
just explain convertible foreign exchange? So what exactly it means? Like how to prove whether it is convertible forex we have received like that?
Okay. As I said earlier, the EBRC will prove to you that it is a convertible foreign exchange. In other words,
FIRC or,
there is no concept of FIRC, which is what I demystified. If at all a bank is giving, they will mention it as FIRA, advice only they will mention. And if you force them because of the relationship that you are having with them, they will sign and give it to you. But still they will, as per your wish, they will give, but it is not mandatory on their part to give that. The convertible foreign exchange in the RBI perspective means that it is a forex which the Indian government, the RBI, when it receives it, it will be able to convert it further. For example, there are certain currencies which are not considered as convertible foreign currency. The Zimbabwean dollar is one. So they went under hyperinflation. So that currency, if you realize, it is not acceptable freely across other countries. So it cannot be converted to other country currency by RBI. So that realization, though it is a forex realization, it is not a convertible forex realization. So they will not accept. But generally, we will not end up in that situation. And here, since you asked this convertible forex, I will add two more points to it. Nepal and Bhutan. These two countries, even if we realize INR, it is deemed to be forex realized by the RBI. So hence, in these two cases, even if you realize only INR, you can still apply for refund under zero rated because the section has been amended to the extent 2 subsection 6 says that convertible forex or wherever allowed by RBI, INR also you can realize.
Actually, I have just come across few cases. One is like a freelancer website is there.
Okay.
So our client will enroll in that freelancer website, and then foreign clients also will enroll, and then it acts as an intermediary between the customer and the supplier. And then they will actually enter an agreement, and freelancer they will collect the money and then they will pay to our client. So, but in the bill, it will show in freelancer website. So bill from our customer, supplier, and then bill to that customer. It will be in
So
dollars.
they will act only as an intermediary.
Yeah.
Their name will
it is
not.
a marketplace.
Understood.
So, but again, here freelancer, they have branch in India also. They will transfer NEFT. So whether it is convertible foreign exchange.
Okay, it's a stretched question, but what I'll do is I'll give you a hint. You can find out the hint further. There is an RBI circular which clearly says sometimes when the money is received in the nostro account, in the vostro account, that is when it comes to the banker of this land website who is collecting it in forex, but he is remitting it to me in INR. But he says that I have realized this money on your behalf only. Because he is realizing it is only on my behalf. He is going to retain his commission portion probably. He is not going to keep everything, which means he realized in forex, but he transferred only INR. If you can get a certificate from his banker, you will still be able to call it as realization of convertible foreign exchange. Yes.
Sir, there are a couple of questions
Online.
from online
Yes.
our delegates who are attending online. Just before that, one small announcement I want
Yes.
to make. We'll be picking up lucky delegates after this session. If you have not yet dropped your cards or not filled in your details, the box is kept right in front. You can fill in the details and you can put it in. Now I come to the questions that have come in, sir. CA Prakash Bansali is asking, is there any time limit for the department to pass an order under PMT 03?
Okay, when you have made an application under PMT 03, what is the time limit? There is no specified time limit. Repeated follow-up is what is my general practice.
Understood, sir. CA Selvakumar M has asked that he has filed RFD 01, but the AO is not acknowledging it and issuing provisional refund of 90%. So what is the way forward?
Okay, when he has, I think he must have got the acknowledgement. Then only the provisional refund would have come. Else, 54 subsection 6, he cannot give unless he has received the RFD 02. Now that the 90% has come, still he is supposed to close it within 60 days, overall time limit. If that has not happened, you are entitled for interest whenever he is closing it. Maybe you can remind the officer about giving a letter stating that the final refund has not come to us.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a CA Sushant who is asking, can we claim refund of the credit ledger balance for closed businesses and how?
Certainly not. So there is no question of how. Because ITC can be claimed as refund only in two situations. One, when you have made a zero rated supply, which could be, as I said, export or SEZ supply, or two, when you have done an inverted duty transaction. In any other case, closing of business, you will have to write it off along with whatever losses that you have, or whenever you are disposing your assets, use that ITC. It will never be given back as refund.
Sir, CA Srinath Rao has asked for 17-18 refund claimed was made within the time limit, but no order was received. And the amount claimed was as refund was recredited to the credit ledger. What is the step forward?
Okay, but you had applied for 17-18, you have got the money back. We just need to know whether they have got any orders. RFD 06 was given or not. Because if RFD 06 has been given, maybe you did not receive it, find out from the department, you can go on appeal.
And one of the question is whether 100% EOU, which pays IGST on imports, can opt for pay IGST and get refund option.
Yes, they can. Rule 96, sub rule 10 allows for it.
And so when refund of ITC on account of export without payment for tax got rejected due to time barring issue, when we apply for refund for subsequent months through export without with payment of taxes for recredit of the amount, it was rejected. I'm not sure if the question is.
Yes, I'm not able to understand the question. Maybe rephrase the question and please send it again.
Sure. Oh.
Yeah.
Father has died, but he has amount in his cash ledger.
Okay.
Now, this happened 1 year before.
No worries. You can still restore the money back to the son, make him feel better.
But then there are 2 children.
No, that is a fight that they have to settle internally.
Okay.
But you tell them that first you finish that and then come to me. Whenever you come, I'll be able to get the refund. I'll tell you how. Because that is where we come in. We cannot go and tell them who has to get what. But what you can do here is that, one, there is a separate circular mentioning what is the procedure for making the business to be given an authorized signatory. Meaning the authorized representative will be able to close down that registration. He can do that. For doing that, you will need the legal hire certificate. So that needs to be submitted to the department. They will reset everything so that the new mobile number, new email ID, they will be able to incorporate and give in the old registration itself. There, you can try submitting the refund application. Or if that business is going to be, the succession is going to happen by any one of them, ITC 02 procedure, take over of business, succession of business, go under section 18, take over, take the cash ledger balance also.
Need that higher certificate even for that ITC 02?
100% you need it because the person who is the one who is going to sign any form in that login is no more. No? Hence, you need that legal hire certificate to make any one of the persons as authorized representative. Now, I think your problem is who will be that person. All the best. Perfect. Good, sir. I missed this point. In case of SEZ supplies, the issue which is coming at large is that it must be endorsed. Sir, I'm not claiming refund. Whether you claim refund or not, whenever you make supplies to an SEZ, that invoice endorsement must be obtained. Now, what is an endorsement? That is not defined. So what we have been doing in the past is that the SEZ, the assistant commissioner who will be there in charge of the SEZ, we will get the certificate, we'll seal from them on the face of the invoice. Subsequently, what happened, when it is goods, at least he is able to inspect that what it is going inside. But if it is services, he is not able to. So he denies blatantly that I cannot give anything. Then what had happened is from 2019, I think, in the SEZs, for the SEZs, in the SEZ authority, they need to upload invoice-wise their purchases or taking of services from DTA. So domestic tariff area, whatever they have taken, I think DTSF is the form that I saw. Domestic tariff service form or service purchase form. This they are uploading. The SEZ unit is meticulously doing it, uploading it. Our invoice, our GST number, everything they are uploading. Please request your customer, that is the our client's customer who is sitting inside the SEZ to furnish that. It comes with digitally signed by the SEZ officer. We need not even have to go and see the SEZ officer who is sitting at the entrance of the SEZ. This can be done online by them. They are already filing it. So from 2019, it has got regularized by and large, including for services. Before that, there is no other go but to get the seal. Again, follow up and get the seal. That is what is my suggestion. Okay. Sir, this has to be facilitated by the unit who procured from you, sir. The unit who is, you are the unit inside SEZ. I made a supply to you. I need not approach the SEZ officer. I'll come to you. You only uploaded the data. You have access to that website. It is like 26As or Form 16, Form 16A. He can download it and give it to us. He has that access. Maybe if he is not aware of it, we should get the knowledge, educate them and start doing so that future transactions are easier.
So this is the issue regarding the refund computation calculation. Will it be must and should to go by headwise calculation or is it at a gross level? Because when they are actually emphasizing the utilization of the credit first towards IGST, eventually the exporter will be ending up in having high balance in CGST and SGST. To really go by headwise calculation, obviously he will have IGST less and CGST, SGST goes by formula. You lose the proportionate to the extent of percentage to IGST value.
True, sir. You can go by the gross calculation, but the gross calculation utilization will have to happen as per the IGST, CGST, SGST order.
That they have given as a IGST first and then balance amount will be 50%. This is that we can follow.
Either CGST, SGST or CGST and then only SGST as per the circular order, meaning the order given in the circular. We have to go by that only.
They are given as 50-50 segregation.
Yes.
Eventually, if there is a deficiency, we can go to other ledger.
Correct.
So there are a couple more online
Yes,
questions.
ma'am.
One of the question is from Soumya CA. She is asking, what about other service providers who are not under ITES? What should they do to get the EBRC?
Which is why I told them even they can register as non-STPI. unit.
Non-STPI.
One and second option available for you, which I have not still explored, but I know that there is a door, that is the Service Export Promotion Council. I mean, when we explored it one time, it sounded very costly. That is why we stopped. But maybe in this case, if it is not costly, you can try that option as well.
So actually we are getting, it's me.
Yes.
Actually, we are getting FIRC for even exports
Okay.
in our company. So then no need to get registered under this SEC or.
Sir,
file.
that FIRC will be an email, sir. Correct, sir?
Yeah.
It will not be digitally signed.
Getting it in a bank.
In a text
letter.
file.
Yeah.
In a text file from the bank.
Yeah.
That is not valid, sir.
This
That is not valid. That is my whole point. It should be signed by the banker, digitally signed. That is how FIRCs were being issued earlier. From 2007 till 2012-13, when we were doing it extensively, I was getting it digitally signed. But from 2013-14 onwards, RBI has said, no more FIRC, we will do it in EBRC. So it has all been taken to the DGFT portal. So what you are getting it as FIRC, as I said, we will be able to prevail over the officer and get the refund. I'm not denying that. But over a period of time, when they know very clearly, as I said, it is not a valid document. Maybe they will amend the circular little while from now and say only EBRC will be accepted. That day will be in a mad rush to go and get the EBRC. Instead, we can do it at peace now, is what is my suggestion, sir.
Another thing is 89.4, whatever calculation we do, it's there in the portal. Friend, my boss asked me, for this period, do a rough calculation or in Excel and tell me how much we are entitled for refund. Total mismatch. Portal. I tell him kindly let us not file nil refund application only on this count, because we have that option, right?
Yes. It is not an option, it is a compulsion.
Compulsion.
Because for this month I cannot file unless I have filed a blank for the last
Yeah.
month. But as I said earlier, last month export of services, if I realize it after 2 years, how will I file application again? And export of service, export of goods, without payment of IGST, there is only one application. So if I had filed for goods, I cannot file for services. Now these are issues they need to address.
No, but then if I file nil application, can't I take the route of others and again refile?
Others is always available, sir, but it will involve a lot of explanation from our side to the officer because, as I said, in Tamil Nadu it has become faceless. So the explanations are huge. We are scanning and sending bulk documents. Same way you may have to explain and get it.
Yeah, in our case, it happened. Our jurisdictional officer, although I uploaded all relevant documents for refund, he rejected only on the count TV. How do
Who
I
is the
look
person?
like? I don't know whether you are genuine. And what is the sum in question for refund? 1 crore 25 lakhs.
So my empathy is with you. We are all in the same boat.
So,
Yeah.
So we have time for one last question. This would be the last question
so
on account of
credit
time.
note given for price difference.
Okay.
I want to understand this in the background of LUT and refund application formula.
Perfect. You are talking about an export credit note.
Export credit.
Okay.
Credit note given for price difference.
Understood.
Can
Goods
the
or service?
client take shelter behind realization saying?
I'll
this
come to
is-
that. Goods
yeah.
or service?
Goods, goods.
Goods.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you have zoomed in on the exact question. If it is goods, you are having multiple implications on this because one, you will not realize forex to that extent. So to that extent, your duty drawback has to be given out because duty drawback would have automatically got credited moment your export had happened. They will not wait for your forex realization. So that you will have to give it back. And when you make a refund application to the department, for example, this month you have raised the export invoice. So you want to make an application in this month, but the credit note was raised 3 months from that month. You don't want to include that month in the refund application. Fine. But while you are considering the export, do not consider the credit note portion. That invoice may be for, let's say, 20 lakhs, but credit note has been given for 2 lakhs. Then consider in the numerator only 18 lakhs. Yes, there is a procedure, sir. Through TR6 challan, you need to pay it back to them. If you do not, because the duty drawback rules 2017 made effective from 1st October 2017 also has this provision that we are liable to pay with 18% interest. So any export related bad debts, though not connected to GST, please remember duty drawback has to be given if it is goods related exports. MEAs or SEAs would never come unless you realize foreign exchange. So that is out of the equation. That is not a problem. But duty drawback is an issue in addition to GST.
Sir, the officer is continuously issuing deficiency memo,
Okay.
even after you file multiple times of refund. So how do you deal with that?
I'm not able to see who's asking this.
Sir, here, just straight here.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. So,
Officer is issuing a deficiency memo.
yeah, every time.
Very
How do you
good.
deal with that?
One, meet the officer personally. I'm not suggesting in any other way, just to understand from him why is he giving a deficiency memo. Because in one of the case, it so happened, he is not able to open the attachment. So he's repeatedly saying, he was saying, nothing is attached, nothing it hasn't. Then finally I told him, I'll send you an email first. Then I will apply. Then he accepted.
What is the legal remedy available?
There is no legal remedy, sir. We'll have to repeatedly apply. That is the only remedy.
Okay, the another point which I wanted to tell about FIRC. So, circular which you are talking about, it's issued by IBA, so Indian Bank Association, so which says that you don't issue FIRC. So there are a couple of banks which are issuing FIRC. There are a couple of banks which are not issuing FIRC. Currently also there are banks which are issuing FIRC. So one is that there is a gap between different banks. Second point is, is it required everyone to get EBRC, and if suppose, we are not STPI unit, so is it mandatory for us, say for example, I'm exporting?
No, as of now, it is not mandatory. As you rightly said, it is not structured, it is not organized. Some of them are doing, some of them are not doing. Understood. But very soon there may not be many banks. There may only be very few banks in India and everybody will have to do it, is what something that can happen over a period of time. At that time in GST also, they'll make a corresponding amendment saying EBRC is only accepted. Now, why wait for that to happen? Why not do it now? Is my suggestion. That is not a compulsion because still the circular says FIRC or other. That other is what is saving us so far. It is like reasons, no? A, B, C will be there, others will be there. All of us will choose others. So the same way we are doing it, which is fine. But if you want to up our level, maybe you can try this, is what is my suggestion. So that is not a mandatory thing, it is a suggestion. 100%. In services, I even explained that, which I am not able to convince. The officer was ready to give higher refund. I convinced her to give a lower refund. Yes, they go by templates, sir. You give all the FARCs. In that quarter, we had collected 13 crores. But that invoicing in that quarter for exports is only 5 crores. But she said, no, you have to apply for 13. You have made to apply for 13.
On account of paucity of time, we will take the next questions offline.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause.
I'll formally
for,
thank you all
CA
also
Shankar.
for being patient audience, hearing me out, both virtual as well as physical. The moment they said it's a physical meeting, yes, sir, I'll finish my thanks note, sir. I've thought about something, so I should not miss it. GST I can say without preparation, but not my thank note. So the day they called me and said it's a session, I agreed. And moment they said it is a physical session, I was overjoyous. I was so very joyed because last 2 years there has not been much of physical programs. That is the kind of thing the physical program has. I hope that we'll be able to meet more and more such kind of physical meetings in future. Thanks to the chapter, for the organizers, for the chairman for organizing such an event. Yes, sir, you can complete the question, sir.
Can we take a refund on TRAN credit?
Absolutely not possible.
They are granted the refund already.
Excellent. You will get a notice little later
Already
after AG audit.
Sir, the audit is going
Now
on.
you know what is going to happen, sir. You cannot say department has given wrongly. They will say you have applied wrongly. Please understand. That is the implication. Repay with 24% interest, even penal provisions can occur.
The GST officer is telling that
You have applied with culpable state of mind. I will come under section 74. That is what you would have told. The officer till yesterday who had been very friendly to us now will look like as if we are a terrorist. We'll have to get ready, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you. Thanks a lot for
I
the audience. Thank
request
you. See you
CA
some other
Kwani to present a memento as our token of appreciation and gratitude to you, sir. Immediately after this, we have a session by Zoho, who are our sponsors. Since we've been talking about refund, we'll also get to know how Zoho can help us in this terms. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for CA Shankar Narayanan.